everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be stamping with the new Rose Garden stamp set. This is a beautiful floral image that can cover almost an entire A2 card. It kind of has a shape that it would fit perfectly into a corner. Sometimes coloring flower images can be a little bit overwhelming, especially large ones like this. So I wanted to share a way to quickly and easily just use part of that stamp to create a floral design that's on a much smaller scale, so it's a little bit easier to color, and it won't take you as long either if you're a little bit short on time. So what I did is I put a piece of cardstock into my MISTI, and I also cut a piece of text paper slightly smaller and die cut a circle in the center. Once I had that circle die cut, I laid it on top of my panel before I did the stamping, and you can see that we ended up with a circle design of those flowers. So rather than having that full floral design on the entire piece of cardstock, we have just a circle area that is the focus, and we have the really large rose in the center. I kind of made sure to position it exactly how I wanted it to appear in the circle. So now we can kind of concentrate on just this little portion instead of coloring the entire thing. Okay, so let's go over a little bit of the supplies that I'm using here. So I have a piece of cardstock. This is cement gray. I love to color on a toned cardstock like a craft or a gray. I just think it really makes the pencil stand out, and I love the different look that you can achieve rather than coloring just on white. For my pencils, I'm using Prismacolor pencils, and what I'm doing is I'm picking out 3 shades of red, and I start with my lightest color, and I also added a little bit of white there to create a bit of a highlight. And I'm going back and forth between my lightest color, my medium, and my darkest, just to create some contrast in this petal. I didn't like how dark the red was getting at the center area of the petal. It was still a little bit too light for what I was trying to achieve. So I am going to come in a minute here with some gray as well. So don't be afraid to use gray. It'll blend in perfectly with these colors, and it's going to give me much more contrast in the center. So just kind of go back and forth and press lightly to get everything to blend together. And then when it's finished being blended, I like to go over with a little bit more pressure and really deepen that color. Now what can happen if you are using a pencil like I am, which is a wax-based pencil, is you can get what's called a wax bloom, and you can kind of see it on screen there, especially because I have light shining directly overhead, so it really picks it up. And what happens is you kind of get a sheen look over all of your coloring. If you use an oil-based pencil, this doesn't really happen because you don't have that wax kind of in the pencil detail. But if you don't want to have this happen to your image, I just suggest going with a lighter hand and not having that really firm pressure on the flowers. I wanted them to be really dark in color. I wanted the color to be super saturated. So the wax bloom really doesn't bother me that much. Keep in mind, I'm not an expert, so there may be ways to kind of make it so you don't end up with that. But in my experience, the way I prefer to color usually results in some type of a wax bloom when I am using these pencils. But like I said, it just depends on how you're viewing the card. You may not see it in certain lights, and in some lights it's going to enhance it a lot more. And you can see that I did color one petal, and then I kind of jumped ahead and all the flowers were colored. I didn't want to leave all of the coloring in the video since it does take a little bit of time to color with colored pencils, but I did want to show you how I colored the flowers. So that first petal that I colored, I showed you that whole process. I did the exact same thing on all of the rest of the petals. I like to color each petal on its own just to give it a really nice defined edge and really make it stand out on its own. And then what I did is I came in with my green colors here, and I'm doing the exact same technique to the leaves. So I have a lighter color, I have a darker color, and a medium color, and I'm kind of just going in with that lighter and darker color, really getting my shadows and my contrast, and then I'm using the medium color to blend it out. And then once again, I will come in with a little bit of gray just to really enhance that contrast. In any of the areas where the flowers go out of the circle, I made sure to leave a rough edge on each of those flowers, just so it kind of looks like the flowers are kind of fading in that area on the outside of the circle. Once I have all of the coloring done, I'm going to do a little technique here that I usually do when I color in any type of clothing. I love to make it look like there's sparkle on dresses especially. I've done this a lot in the past, and I was kind of going for this idea when I started to do these on the flowers. Now, I'm not 100% sure that this really turned out how I wanted. What I did first is I took my red glitter pen. You can use any type of red glitter marker, and I'm just dotting a little bit of glitter detail in all of the kind of darker areas of the flower. Once I was happy with how much red I had on there, I took my white gel pen and I'm going to do the same. And I'm just going to dot a bunch of little white dots. And the effect I'm going for is to kind of make it look like there's a sparkle to the flowers. Now, when you do this with a dress, it works very well. I didn't really love it so much on a flower. It didn't really give me the look I was going for. So once I finished with the white, I had a lot of white dots. I should have quit while I was ahead, but I didn't. And I definitely did not want to throw this card away. I did a lot of coloring on it, but I wasn't happy with what I had created. So what I did is I took the red sparkle pen that I had used first, and I decided to go over a bunch of the areas where I had put the white. The red is actually covering up a bunch of that white, so I was much happier when I had a little bit less of the white dots once I was finished with this. Now, I'm not 100% sure that this still looks like sparkle to me, but what it does kind of remind me of is baby's breath, which is a common thing that comes in a bouquet of roses. So even though it didn't turn out exactly as I was thinking in my head, I am going to finish the card. I still love the coloring, and I don't hate the white detail. I just didn't kind of get the look I was going for. I'm going to add a little bit more detail with my white gel pen, this time adding some highlights to the leaves, which I know I'll love. I love doing this to any type of colored leaves or any type of colored images, really. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to work on the sentiment that we're going to add to the card. When I started creating this card, I had Valentine's Day in mind, which is why I did the red roses. So I am going to add a love theme sentiment to this card. I'm using the From the Heart stamp set, which has a bunch of great love theme sentiments. And I'm using the one that says "You're Still the One." I'm going to use the Skinny Strips Die-namics. I'm using the larger one from that set. And I'm going to die cut the banner, and I'm going to add it to the card and just trim the extra off the side. So I'm just kind of figuring out where I want to adhere that. Once I kind of have an idea of where it's going to go, I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back of this banner. Then I'm going to add it directly over top of the flowers and trim off the little extra piece on the side. I love having a cluster where you have like the images and then the sentiment strip layered directly over top. But if you prefer to leave your flowers completely open, then you can put your sentiment anywhere else on the panel that you have the open space. To finish off the card, I'm going to add it to a red card base. This is Electric Red, which is a really nice deep red that coordinates nicely with my colored flowers. And then I also added a couple of clear sequins just to add a little bit of detail and dimension into those open spaces. And that is going to complete our card. I hope today's video gave you some ideas on ways that you can use larger stamps, but actually use a smaller area so it's a little bit less overwhelming. And I hope you were inspired to continue on a card even though you don't necessarily love how it's turning out, because in the end, I really did like this card. I thought it came together really nicely. As always, I appreciate you being here for another video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.